Welcome to the deep dive. This week, we are wading through, well, quite a bit, 37 different platform announcements from AWS just from September 22nd to the 26th.
Yeah, that's a packed week.
It really is. And our mission, as always, is to take that huge volume and boil it down into the key actionable insights you actually need. Fast.
It's a lot to cover. Definitely spans pretty much the whole spectrum of cloud services. But when you look closely, you start to see, I think, two main threads emerging quite strongly.
Oh.
On one hand, you've got just raw infrastructure improvements. We're talking pure speed, more bandwidth, huge IOPS scaling, really foundational stuff.
Right. The nuts and bolts getting faster.
Exactly. But then on the other hand, there's this really heavy, mature focus on enterprise security, governance, compliance tooling, stuff that, big organizations, regulated industries, they've been asking for this.
That makes sense. So the platform isn't just getting quicker, it's also getting, well, fundamentally more trustworthy, more controllable.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And you see that in how features that were maybe niche before are now hitting mainstream regions. And maybe most importantly, key security tools are landing in GovCloud.
Which signals what, exactly?
It signals that the cloud is getting serious about closing that gap, meeting those really strict requirements you typically only found on premises. It's about optimizing the fundamentals cost, performance, while adding layers of cryptographic proof, fine-grained identity control, things that just weren't really there a couple of years ago.
Okay, let's dive into that foundation then, core compute and storage. Because some of these updates, honestly, they feel like they require revisiting capacity planning models, especially for high-throughput apps.
Absolutely. That general-purpose GP3 volume expansion is colossal. It's not just a small bump.
Colossal how? What are the numbers?
Okay, so volume size scale is up 4x,
Oh.
4 times, up to 64 TiBo now for a single GP3 volume.
64 terabytes. Wow.
And the performance increase alongside that size bump. That's where it gets really interesting. IOPS scaled 5x, 5 times, hitting 80,000 IOPS.
80,000.
And throughput doubled, up to 2,000 MB per second.
So for architects, what's the real impact beyond just bigger numbers?
It's operational simplification. Think about it.
Right.
If you were hitting, say, 80,000 IOPS before, you were probably striping multiple smaller volumes together, right?
Yeah, that's a common pattern, especially for databases or container storage needing high performance. It can be a bit fiddly.
Exactly. Fiddly is a good word.
Yeah.
Now, you might be able to just consolidate all that complexity onto one single GP3 volume. Anyone who's spent a weekend troubleshooting a striped volume setup knows why that consolidation is a massive quality of life improvement.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Fewer moving parts, less to manage. But even with huge storage, you can still hit the network wall, right?
You can. And that's where the other really big news comes in. AWS eliminated the network burst duration limits for some specific large EC2 instances.
Which ones?
We're talking the I7i and the I8g instances, specifically sizes larger than 4x large.
Okay, so the bigger network-focused instances. What does eliminating burst limits mean in practice?
It fundamentally changes predictability. You know the old I/O credit system? Baseline bandwidth, then you burst for a limited time. That's gone for these specific instance configurations. Now, the maximum network bandwidth they offer, it's sustained indefinitely.
Indefinitely, so no more throttling after a burst.
Correct. You're effectively doubling the available network bandwidth at all times for those high-end sizes. This makes performance completely predictable. Think large transactional databases, high-throughput data processing, anything I/O intensive. It's a new standard for predictable performance at the infrastructure level.
That's a significant shift. And supporting all this speed, we saw more Graviton 4 instances rolling out too, right?
Yes, Graviton 4 is really solidifying its place. The EBS-optimized R8GB instances hit general availability.
And the specs on those.
Up to 30% better compute performance compared to Graviton 3. Plus, EBS bandwidth hitting 150 GBps. Really strong for memory-intensive workloads needing fast storage access.
And if raw network throughput is the main goal?
Then you look at the C8g instances, also Graviton 4. They're expanding into more regions now. These are the beasts offering up to 600 GBps network bandwidth.
600 gigabits per second, okay.
Yeah, ideal for things like network virtual appliances, massive data analytics clusters, anywhere. Network is the bottleneck.
And just quickly, Compute Optimizer is keeping up.
It is. It now supports 99 new EC2 instance types. And that includes all these latest ones we mentioned, C8GN, MAI, R8i, IH families.
Which is good news for FinOps teams trying to figure out savings.
Absolutely. It feeds that data right back, helps identify where you can potentially save money, by moving to these newer, more efficient instances.
Okay, so the underlying compute and network are getting seriously faster and more predictable. How are the specialized data services leveraging that? Let's start with graph databases. Neptune Analytics.
Yeah, Neptune Analytics popped up in a new region, Asia-Pacific, Mumbai.
And remind us, Neptune Analytics is different from the standard Neptune database, right?
It is. Think of Neptune Database for your regular transactional graph workload. Neptune Analytics is different. It's a memory-optimized engine built purely for fast graph analytics.
Fast analytics, how?
It has optimized graph algorithms built in, but the really interesting part, I think, is its ability to do vector search within a graph traversal.
Okay, vector search inside the graph. What does that unlock?
It lets you find really complex patterns or recommendations super quickly in massive datasets.
Yep.
You're combining the relationship context of the graph with a semantic similarity search of vectors, near real-time insights on complex connections.
Interesting. Okay, moving over to streaming. MSK Connect.
MSK Connect expanded its reach quite a bit, now in 5 additional AWS regions.
And its core job is?
Running fully managed Kafka Connect clusters. Basically, it takes away all the pain of setting up, managing, and scaling the infrastructure you need to run Kafka connectors. You just deploy your connectors, and it handles the scaling automatically. Huge operational win.
Got it. Let's talk data warehousing. Redshift had some updates, too.
It did. Concurrency scaling expanded significantly 10 more regions, including GovCloud US West.
And concurrency scaling helps with?
Handling thousands of concurrent users and queries. When your main cluster gets busy, Redshift automatically spins up additional temporary query processing power in the background to handle the load elastically.
So, consistent performance even under heavy load.
Exactly. And for most customers, you get up to an hour of these free credits per day, which often covers typical peak usage.
And for those who want to avoid managing clusters altogether?
Redshift serverless is the answer there. It just became generally available in Asia-Pacific. Taipei.
That's the pay-per-second auto-scaling model, right?
Yep. Pay only for what you use down to the second, and it scales automatically. Perfect for analysts or data scientists who just want to run queries without worrying about infrastructure tuning. Time to insight is a priority.
Makes sense. Let's dip into relational databases. There was a preview for PostgreSQL 18.0 features.
Yes, in the RDS preview environment. A few interesting things, but 2 caught my eye for modern systems.
Okay, what are they?
First, skip scan support for multi-column B-tree indexes that can optimize certain types of queries. But the really crucial one, I think, is native support for UID version 7. UID v7.
UID v7. Why is that version significant?
Okay, so previous UID versions, like v4, are completely random. When you insert data using random keys into databases that like sequential writes, like PostgreSQL with B-trees, you get terrible index fragmentation. Performance just degrades.
Right, because the inserts are happening all over the index.
Exactly. UID-7 fixes this. It includes a timestamp component along with the uniqueness. This means generated IDs are roughly sequential, promoting much better write patterns and significantly boosting performance in high-throughput distributed systems where index fragmentation is a common, costly headache.
Okay. So better locality, better performance for insert-heavy workloads. What else for RDS?
A big operational improvement. Single-step cross-region and cross-account snapshot copying for both RDS and Aurora.
Single step. How did it work before?
You usually had to do an intermediate copy. Copy it within the account or region first, then copy it again to the destination. Often needed custom scripts to manage and monitor it.
Sounds cumbersome.
It was. This single-step process is a massive simplification for disaster recovery workflows. It streamlines the whole thing, improves your recovery point objective, your RPO, because it's faster, and it can even lower costs by getting rid of that temporary intermediate storage. Much cleaner.
Nice. And lastly in this section, cost management for DB2.
Yep, RDS for DB2 now has reserved instances available, offering savings up to 47% compared to on-demand.
Standard RI benefits, but anything specific to note?
The key thing is the size flexibility feature. If you buy an RI for, say, a large DB2 instance, but then resize to an X large within the same family, the discount automatically applies. You don't lose the benefit.
All right, let's shift to what you called the mature focus area, enterprise security, governance, compliance. This feels like where AWS is really doubling down for large organizations.
I think so, too. And we're moving beyond just basic security hygiene into things like cryptographic proof. Case in point. EC2 Instance Attestation. It just hit general availability.
Instance Attestation, what does that actually do?
Okay. It uses the Nitro Trusted Platform module, the Nitro TPM, that's built into modern EC2 instances, along with special attestable AMIs. Basically, it lets you cryptographically prove that an EC2 instance booted up and is running only the trusted software and configuration you expect.
So it's not just assuming the instance is okay, you get a verifiable cryptographic receipt.
Exactly. A signed attestation document. And the crucial part is the integration with KMS, the key management service.
How does that work?
You can create policies in KMS that say only allow this sensitive encryption key to be used by an instance that presents a valid attestation proving it's running this specific trusted configuration.
Wow. So you link cryptographic proof of the instance's integrity directly to its ability to access sensitive data keys.
Precisely. It's a fundamental shift in the trust model. You're not just relying on network controls, you're verifying the instance's internal state.
That's powerful. And complementing that verification, there were also enhancements to AMI governance.
Yes, the EC2 allowed AMI setting got more granular. It now lets you define policies based on 4 new parameters.
Which are?
Marketplace product codes, AMI deprecation time, AMI creation date, and specific AMI names or patterns.
So platform teams can get much stricter about which AMIs developers are allowed to launch.
Absolutely. You can enforce policies across the whole organization. Say no AMIs older than 90 days, or only AMIs from our approved internal catalog or these specific marketplace vendors, or no AMIs marked for deprecation. It prevents accidental or intentional use of non-compliant, unauthorized, or crucially outdated AMIs right at the launch step. Simplifies compliance checks hugely.
Pre-launch control. Makes sense. What about network security? AWS Network Firewall updates.
Yeah, they enhanced its application layer traffic inspection capabilities.
Targeting what specifically?
More advanced evasion techniques. Things like attackers trying to sneak malicious payloads past inspection by splitting TLS client hellos or HTTP requests across multiple packets. The firewall's stateful engine is now better at reassembling and inspecting these fragmented flows.
So smarter inspection for tricky traffic.
Right. And new default stateful actions, drop established or alert established, give you more control over how to handle connections once that potentially evasive traffic is detected.
Okay. And vital for certain sectors. Lambda code signing in GovCloud.
Yes, that's now available in the AWS GovCloud regions. This is often a non-negotiable requirement for government agencies or highly regulated industries.
Oh, why is it so critical there?
It ensures that only code that has been cryptographically signed using AWS Signer, proving it came from a trusted source and hasn't been tampered with, can actually be deployed to a Lambda function. It's a key defense against supply chain attacks or unauthorized code modifications in those really sensitive environments.
Makes perfect sense for high security zones. Lastly, identity management. IAM Identity Center.
Big update there. It now supports using customer-managed KMS keys, or CMKs, for encrypting the workforce identity data it stores.
What kind of data are we talking about?
User attributes, group memberships, that kind of identity information.
And why is using your own KMS key important here?
Control and auditability. Before, this data was encrypted using AWS managed keys. Now, security and compliance teams can use their own encryption keys. This means they have full, granular control via KMS key policies and can audit every single access to that key via CloudTrail. It puts the customer firmly in control of the security boundary around their workforce identity data.
Okay, final section. Let's look at tools for developers building AI applications and for keeping all these complex systems running smoothly, starting with AI agents, Amazon Bedrock Agent Core infrastructure readiness.
This is pretty important for enterprise adoption, actually. The core components of Bedrock agents, the runtime, the browser tool, the code interpreter, now have crucial enterprise features. Like what? VPC connectivity, support for AWS Private Link, CloudFormation support for infrastructure as code deployment, and resource tagging.
Why is that VPC and private link support so critical for agents?
Well, AI agents are only really useful if they can interact securely with your company's internal systems, right? Access internal APIs, query private databases, use internal tools.
Sure, that's where a lot of the value is.
Before this, securely connecting agents to those private resources within your VPC without exposing anything to the public internet was a major challenge. Now, with VPC connectivity and private link, enterprises can build and deploy agents that securely access those internal resources, and they can manage it all reliably using CloudFormation. It unlocks enterprise use cases.
Got it. Secure access to internal data and making the developer experience itself easier.
Yeah, the Amazon Nova Act extension. This brings the agent development work, creating the agent's action scripts, editing them precisely, even testing how the agent interacts with websites using the browser tool directly into the IDE.
So developers can stay in their preferred environment like VS Code.
Exactly. VS Code, Kiro, Cursor. It integrates the whole agent development lifecycle, from idea to testing to production deployment, right into the developer's workflow. Less context switching, faster iteration.
Makes sense. Okay, switching to observability, keeping systems running. AWS X-Ray had an update. Adaptive sampling.
Yes, adaptive sampling. This tackles that classic trade-off in distributed tracing, cost versus completeness. Tracing everything all the time is expensive, but only sampling a small percentage means you might miss crucial data during an incident.
So how does adaptive sampling solve that?
It's clever. It uses mechanisms like sampling boost and anomaly span capture. Basically, when X-Ray detects an issue, like increased latency or errors, or if you manually trigger it, it automatically increases the sampling rate for traces related to that issue.
Ah, so you get detailed traces exactly when you need them most for debugging.
Precisely. It ensures you capture comprehensive trace data during incidents to help reduce mean time to resolution, MTTR, but without the constant high cost of 100% tracing during normal operation.
Smart. And CloudWatch got an update related to tags.
Yes. CloudWatch metrics, specifically the vended metrics from AWS services, now support resource tags.
How does that help?
It hugely simplifies monitoring at scale. If you already use tags consistently to organize your resources, like tagging by application, environment, or team, you can now use those same tags to filter and aggregate metrics in CloudWatch.
So you can create dashboards or alarms that automatically reflect your organizational structure based on tags.
Exactly. Create dynamic views. If you add a new production server with the right tag, it automatically shows up on the production dashboard. It cuts down massively on the manual configuration needed to keep monitoring aligned with your actual deployment structure. Big win for DevOps teams.
Definitely sounds useful. And quickly, a couple for Amazon Connect, the contact center service.
Yeah, 2 usability improvements. First, the Flow Designer, where you build the customer interaction logic, now has an enhanced analytics mode. You can see key aggregate metrics, like how many customers went down a certain path, where errors occurred, abandonment rates overlaid directly onto the visual flow diagram itself, helps identify bottlenecks or issues much faster.
Visual diagnostics. Nice. And the second?
Amazon Contact Lens, which does call analytics and transcription, expanded its sensitive data redaction capabilities to 7 additional languages.
So automatically removing things like credit card numbers or PII.
Exactly. Crucial for maintaining compliance, especially for global contact centers dealing with international privacy regulations. Hashtag tag outro.
Okay, so wrapping up this week's 37 updates, quite the list. It feels like those 2 themes you mentioned at the start really held true.
Yeah, I think so. First, those really foundational performance boosts. You can't ignore that huge 5x GP3 IOPS jump or the shift to sustain predictable network bandwidth for those bigger I7i and I8g instances. That's just raw power and predictability.
Right. And the second theme, that strong push towards mature enterprise governance and security. Things like EC2 instance attestation giving cryptographic proof of integrity. That feels like a game changer.
It really does. That, plus the more granular AMI controls, Lambda code signing, landing in GovCloud, and letting customers use their own keys for IAM Identity Center encryption. It all points towards AWS aggressively meeting those really stringent compliance and control demands.
Closing the gap on traditional on-prem security expectations.
Exactly. And that combination, that intersection of performance and verifiable control, leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe ponder this week.
Okay.
What does this combination cryptographic instance verification with EC2 attestation, coupled with centralized identity control using your own keys in IAM Identity Center,
Right.
what does that actually mean for how you might architect your most highly sensitive or regulated workloads in the future?
Think about that level of trust, where you can cryptographically prove the integrity of the entire instance stack from boot onwards, and then use that proof to control access to the actual encryption keys protecting the data.
How much closer does that kind of holistic, verifiable security posture push cloud infrastructure towards meeting or maybe even exceeding the strictest requirements currently associated with lockdown on-premises data centers?
That feels like the direction things are heading. Definitely something to think about.
Indeed. Well, thank you for tuning into this deep dive.
We hope this breakdown helps you navigate the latest from AWS. See you next time.